Broadcast is live.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the AI Daily Show. You're here, you made it. You got 5 of the 7 of us here today. And today we're going to be talking about chatbots. But before we get into that, I want to make sure we say a very happy birthday to our very own Beth. Happy birthday, Beth.
Thank you.
Birthday.
Happy birthday.
So, Beth, since it's your birthday, why don't you kick us off here? What would you like to jump into as far as chatbots? What's been burning you? What do you feel like is, that thing that we got to tell our audience about?
I think chatbots are like amazing. Okay, so Chatbase had I think chatbots are an amazing source of content when you have a very specific thing that you want to ask about. So I'm a Salesforce admin. Salesforce has amazing help with really crappy interface. Sorry for hey, the answer is there, but it takes you like way too long to find it. So I built a chatbot on Chatbase with the PDF of the documents. And the reason that I did it in Chatbase and not ChatGPT is ChatGPT very convincingly said, yes, I'm certain of this. It's on page 35. And of course it was not. And it was not the correct answer, which is why it wasn't working. But in Chatbase, if I set the temperature to 0, I have my own personal Salesforce help. And it is so helpful.
Yeah, so maybe we should. That's awesome because I definitely want to talk about Chatbase. I think quite a few of us have used it, as well as a couple other competitors. I guess we would say other alternatives out there for chatbots. But that's a really good starting point because I think you right away you kind of nailed one of the key aspects of it. Can be insanely helpful, and you're even talking about internally helpful. And then I think there's even the external helpful, right? Like how it's helping customers on forward facing. Because I think a lot of people, you guys correct me if you think I'm let's chat about it. But I think a lot of people still think, that maybe watching this, they think about chatbots is just being that thing that's in the bottom right corner of a website. And it's the thing you ask for customer service. Or, I was digging deep into Zendesk AI, which is a platform that deals with that. And they were giving examples of this guy wants to buy a surfboard, but he's too tall. Right. And so in that example video, the guy, not too tall, he's just taller. Right. So he's like 230 pounds. He's 6'5". And so only certain surfboards are going to fit his needs. And through their AI and using a more intuitive chatbot, they were able to quickly figure that out. And then it was even showing how through Zendesk, since he was already a high priority customer in the past, he got fast tracked to a live agent who helped him figure out the right surfboard and bought it on his behalf. And you just think about that and you think like, what an amazing customer experience. And that happened in a chatbot. And I think 5 years ago, like there's very few people who were talking about this amazing customer experience that happened through a chatbot. Most of us were like just banging our head against the desk thinking like, this is awful. So I wanted to talk about that. Like, we have the internal, which is sort of what you were saying, Beth. And then I think we have the external. How is this absolutely helping our customers? And then, things I was thinking of are like, the sales and marketing or the data privacy. And these are all different areas that we could definitely dig into. So I don't know, what the rest do you guys think about it? What's your take right now on them?
What if I jump in?
Yep, go.
Please.
So I guess I'm coming to this from a marketing perspective. And so my concept of chatbots is usually tools that plug into Facebook Messenger for running ads. So things like ManyChat and ChatFuel and that sort of stuff. Now, speaking personally, I've never really had any great love and or success with using those tools, but I know people who've had success. But I think the challenge there is that they're typically quite linear. You design out this logic for people to follow a path. If they try to step even slightly off the path, everything goes pear-shaped. And so I see that, and I haven't had a chance to use anything like that yet, but except for ChatGPT, I guess you could say it's a chatbot. But I see that being able to connect up a tool like one of those tools to something like the OpenAI API or something like that we could, especially if we can feed it specific data to work from, I think we could have a whole different experience for everybody. And as you say, Brian, you can elevate the opportunity of the customer a great experience. And there's a lot of other things you could do with it. So I'm really interested to see where this is going in at least the short term, because it's not going to take that long for this to be mainstream as far as I'm concerned.
No, and Andy, I mean, I'm curious to get your feel on it too, because we've sort of talked about this, outside of the, either in our tech rehearsals or in other conversations about how I think we were talking about how this is like, you feel like kind of like I do, maybe this is going to quickly be something that every single product, every single is going to have some sort of form or format of an AI chatbot that's probably built into it, that's purpose built for whatever that task is. Any thoughts on that side of it?
Yeah. First, let me just distinguish between chatbot implementations against FAQ and knowledge stores within a website and chatbots like ChatGPT and others that are actually responding to questions you may ask it against its expansive knowledge of everything that's on the internet. Okay, so there are two different scales of chatbots that way. And the reason that we're seeing such a proliferation of the implementation of chatbots on websites is that the large language models, OpenAI's ChatGPT is being used as the conversational interface for a small subset of information that's on the website. So you're having this conversation now that's powered by a very large language model to make it really skillful at communication with a human. And then it's being bound to a small knowledge base. And so you're seeing just a very simple implementation of a large language model on any website you like. And that's really profoundly easy now for any company. Yeah. And all of us have assisted somebody in doing that kind of thing on a website. Now, I'll just say I'm skeptical that that's going to translate into, for small knowledge sets like on a website, that's going to change the game with it when it comes to customer support. For me personally, I have yet to actually use a customer support line on the telephone or on a website that did any better than it did a year ago.
Right.
That's my experience. Now, I loved your example, Brian, and I think that there are examples out there emerging, but I think that just putting up a conversational interface is not terribly different from what the programmatic conversations with chat services down in the bottom right-hand corner have been yet. But there's there's a lot that's moving very fast with AI, and I think you're going to see much more sophisticated interactions and ones that can go way beyond, with the inclusion of automations, go way beyond just answering questions like FAQ.
Yeah.
I'd like to push a little bit back on that, Andy. I think UX is leaps and bounds improved with chatbots. I personally have never had a good experience with, we'll say pre-AI chatbots, Intercom, Zendesk, Freshdesk. Never had a good experience personally. And that could just be the way I like to look into an FAQ or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But my experience with conversational based AI chatbots has been fantastic for that kind of process, because I can explain what I'm trying to do and then it'll find the relevant data. Whereas what it's been up to this point has been, I need to ask it the specific keywords and or, FAQ entry for it to understand anything. And so when in the past, for companies I work for, when we've had to set up a Freshdesk or a Zendesk type of chatbot, it's very set up through programmatic setup, like Aaron said, where you have to pick out everything that you're going to put in there, all answer question and responses. And that's just never been useful to me. I'd rather be talking to a person, and that gets me the best results.
Truly, you're right. It does open my mind by the fact that the conversational skills of the AI-driven chatbots are actually opening up the mind of the information there a little more broadly than just a list of, oh, do you want to get your billing statement? That's a little dumb. So I do see that happening, and maybe I've been poisoned by those chat experiences. And so I'm very reluctant to engage with a chatbot on a website at this point.
Well, the other thing is the expectation, right? So I had for me, it is changing the expectation of customer experience. And when I encounter what I now consider the stupid chatbot that can answer 2 questions and then says, how about you give us your email and phone number and we'll give you a call back? I'm like, you're sitting on a ton of data and you're an AI service. What is happening here? And just to note that Chatbase actually does both, right? So you can set in Chatbase, and I'm sorry, other tools probably do this too, but you can set so that there are specific questions that you word, and it will give those specific answers because you've chosen them, and then it uses the wider data source.
And I think this is a great time to just step back a second and talk about what you guys are all talking about, which is, when we talk about chatbots, there's 2 ways that they've sort of done. Our old school chatbots were really based on keyword search, and the newer version, the AI version, are based on semantic search. And so let's just break that down really quick. So here's how I think about it. Keyword search is I asked for the word apple. And so an old chatbot or an old keyword search return to that is only going to look for the word apple. It's not really going to go beyond that. It's either going to give it to me as part of a sentence, but if I didn't say the word apple, I'm out of luck, right? So it's like flipping to the back of the index and looking up apple, and it says it's on page 72 and 52. Okay, great. I have to go to 72, 52. But what if I wanted to talk about fruit? What if I wanted to talk about apple pie? What if I wanted to talk about Apple, the company that makes the iPhone? It's keywords won't get you there. With semantic search, what we're really talking about is having a smart friend, let's call him Sam. And Sam is really great about getting context like a human is. And so now Sam says, oh, you want to talk about Apple? Well, what else was in that sentence to the left and to the right, above and below it, that gives me a good understanding of what you are intending to find? And so now it's going to give me back answers like, apple pie, or maybe Apple, the company, if I was talking about a tech product or whatever the case may be. And so now we're no longer limited. And the reason why I think old chatbots always kind of suck to a certain extent is the people building them had to basically guess at exactly what it thought you would say. So again, like Andy, you were saying, if I needed expenses, well, somebody might say costs or whatever the case is. And it couldn't link the 2 of them together. But now I think of it as the analogy I think of is, you guys know I like analogies, but, I was a firefighter, right? And so when I would go into a burning building, and it's completely smoked out or whatever, we were crawling in with our hands and knees, and we put our right or our left hand on a wall. We usually had another firefighter. If you were doing a search, you would do a right-handed search or a left-handed search. So I would go in the front door of a house. Now, conceptually, I knew I was in a house, right? Or a building. Maybe let's just say it's a building, and I didn't conceptually know. And so it's really, really dark, and I have my right hand on the wall, and I'm doing this, and with my left hand, I'm swinging out trying to find people, bodies, right? Whatever it is we're in there to find. And you might be using a hook to do it. And so my limited view of that is whatever I literally can see within about a foot or 2 in front of my face. But it is, people don't realize from the movies and stuff, it is really dark, and it's really disorienting. And so that's me, right? That's my flashlight view of which way I turn my head. That's exactly what my context is. But now there's firefighters from the ladder truck. They go up to the roof and they breach a hole in the roof, and now all the smoke lifts up out of it. And this would happen all the time. You'd be in a very disorienting dark room, and all of a sudden you'd start to realize that you can see, oh, there's a couch in front of me. That's why I couldn't move forward. Oh, there's a TV that fell down over here. Oh, part of the roof is collapsed over here. And now, because I no longer just have this view, now I have that full context of everything that's going on in the room, and I have a better understanding of what's going on. And so old school chatbots were keyword, flashlight. New school is semantic search, which is much, much smarter. It uses like trigonometry and spatial relationships between words as I've looked into it, and it blows my mind. And I think that's the difference. And that's what everybody is going to eventually have. You ask a question, it's going to conceptually know what you're getting at and give you back the right answer. Or as we saw with the Zendesk, or going to McDonald's and going up to a board and starting to order, but then there's a human involved. Maybe Andy, this is the future. The near future is chatbot plus human, and eventually maybe that human will eventually be removed from the situation altogether. So that's how I think of it, and I think that's why I get really excited about them in general.
Yeah. So you've pointed out a key distinction, which is the competence of vector analysis and semantic search. That's really identifying, even in areas that aren't on the right topic area within an FAQ, it's identifying content that is relevant to the query that was just delivered it. The other major distinction is that the large language model can assemble a wide array of information that it's retrieved from that and fashion a discussion that incorporates logically and sensibly all of those points of fact and gives you a reasoned response. That's the real power added to the semantic search that makes for a really rich user experience and a lot better information delivery.
Right. And on the internal facing again, in Salesforce has had natural language search bot for several years. They knew that AI was going to be a thing, and so they have had that included. Now, so those were called Einstein bots. Now, Einstein GPT means that you can natural language search more analytical data, right? So you can, in your search, ask it to do an analysis and give you feedback in a more natural language way. Again, Salesforce has had AI Einstein next best action for a while, which was giving salespeople information about like, hey, based on what we can read from all of this data, this is what this would be the next best option for your ultimate goal. I cut somebody off.
I've got a good real life example of that for me.
Awesome.
So a few months ago, I was looking to upgrade my computer. It was playing up and I needed a new motherboard, and it's a bit of an old computer. So I was trying to find a new motherboard for it that was old school. And I found one that was an option, and there were 4 of them. And I went and looked on the website, read the tech specs and the details. And at the end of it, I couldn't figure out which one was the right one. And you go to Google and try. It's really difficult with something like Google search, and it would apply the same with chatbots that have got sort of pre-linear type logic built in. It's really difficult to ask it to kind of think outside the box. And basically, I just asked the question, you've got this this brand with these 4 models. What's the difference between them, and which one's the best one to use in my use case? And it just went, spat out the answer straight away. That's which amazing. You would never have got from Google unless someone had actually figured out that someone was going to ask a convoluted question like I was asking and write a page on it and publish it on the web. Right. Ditto for chatbots. Unless you can read people's minds in advance, you can't accommodate those things. But this whole AI large language model stuff is just makes things so much more intuitive and more powerful. So yeah, I'm really excited for where it's going.
Yeah. So let's maybe, we got about 10 minutes left on this session, this discussion. So let's start talking about, how you guys think this is immediately impacting, businesses as you guys see it, either with your clients or in your personal businesses. I will just say for me, one of the things I've been doing is using a tool like Chatbase, which makes it so easy to build a very, very quick, semantic library, if you will. It'll scrape any website you want. So I've been telling my clients hey, why don't you go get a Chatbase subscription and then go scrape your competitors' websites? Because now what you can do is go in and very quickly and say, hey, what are the competitive advantages and disadvantages of this client versus what we offer? And it can make it very, very easy. I mean, you imagine the alternative that is going to a client's website, digging through their blogs and everything else. Well, if I'm thinking about a competitive advantage or maybe a blog that I want to put out from my company, and I'm saying like, I want to make sure I have a unique point on this, just build a chatbot to go scrape the website for you. And then I just go and ask the chatbot and I'm like, hey, you got any blogs that cover this topic or whatever? And if it does, it'll immediately pull that up and give you some reasoning for it. And if not, it can start to help you develop a unique perspective or blog that you could put out that's different or differentiated from your competitors. So I think that's one use case I don't think people think about a lot. They think like, oh, it's building this chatbot in the right corner because of my customers. Like, well, no, you can use it internally and get real smart really quickly if you're like an SDR and AE by having a lot of knowledge at your fingertips super, super quick. So that's one for me.
SDR, AE, what are those?
Oh, sales development representative or account executive. So SDRs are your sales folks that are trying to book a discovery call, but they're the true boots on the ground. I have a lot of love for SDRs because they're doing the hard work, the cold calls, that kind of stuff. Usually by the time it gets to like an AE, it might be more on a discovery call. It's being passed off a little bit into the sales funnel. So you have your lead generation, your sort of like early stuff, cold stuff, moving into your discovery calls and somebody who's a warmer lead at this point. So those are sort of a breakdown of it. Somebody watching this is going to be like, Brian, you ruined that. But that's my basic.
Somebody else watching is saying, Beth, thank you for asking that because I did not know what this meant.
That's true. Yeah. So what else you guys got? What other use cases could, either a small business, big business? I know, Robert's not here today, but he would usually push back and be like, what's the enterprise example of this? So, what do we think as far as how people could maybe think outside the box on this or outside the box?
One thing I would say, and a couple of you guys mentioned earlier, was talking about small businesses. And I think it's probably fair to say that a lot of small businesses won't have a lot of unique content that's relevant to their business to push into something like this to train it. Mm-hmm. But I can definitely see a market coming available where you'll be able to buy that kind of data for different types of industries and different types of occupations. So if you're running a dental business, you can go and buy a whole pile of dental related training information versus a plumber or a carpenter or a marketer or whatever. So I think that will potentially solve the problem for smaller businesses because they'll be able to buy their chatbot, plug it into some kind of AI and buy a data set to feed into it and add their own info. I think that's going to make it a lot easier for people to use it, even at the low level of the market.
Interesting business opportunity, Aaron. Collecting knowledge that's a key part of it.
Yeah. Internally, I've been using it with the startups field. We've used it for business development strategy, things like that, SWOT analysis, and just developing our market or target audience, those kinds of things, and using the persona-based, question answers based framework is really gotten us a lot of insight on how to develop a startup or develop a new business.
So Junmi, you're speaking about using one of the large language models directly to fashion product development related documentation and ideation, because it can also be creative and give you lots of interesting marketing and or product options and ideas.
This is true. Yeah. Using it directly, or we've created chatbots using Chatbase for any specific kind of analysis that we want to do. So like how Brian had pointed out, if we wanted to analyze potential competitors or threats and things like that, we would plug in what they're offering and how then we could ask a series of questions to see how much it aligns with what our intentions are, what we want to go forward, and develop a strategy based off of that.
Yeah, lest we seem to be an all chat-based organization here.
Right.
I don't use Chatbase, and there's not just a handful anymore of chat-based like things out there.
Oh yeah, right. Definitely.
So let's just share a couple of the other examples that we know of.
I was going to say, I wish I had bought Chatbase when it was going cheap on AppSumo recently, but it's now gone. So I didn't see the big picture at the time.
So one of the reasons that Chatbase is used so well is that it's very good, and it was offered to the AI Exchange as a one-time purchase to use it for lifetime. And so a lot of people in the AI Exchange, which is where we all met,
Sure.
a lot of people use Chatbase for that reason. But Chatbase is not the plus ultra of chatbot builders, and there are many. I just watched a demonstration by a new one emerging from somebody who'd been a Google executive, and it has some distinctive features compared to Chatbase and others. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't look like we were here on commercial promotion of Chatbase.
No, you're absolutely right. That's the reason I bit into it as well. But I agree with you. What I feel like Chatbase is currently missing, and I'm not quite sure if anybody else is doing this, quite honestly, maybe they are, Andy, is real time, like continuing, like I can go to Chatbase and I can say, scrape this website, right? And it'll bring back up to my limit, which is like 6 million parameters or whatever it is, or characters. I can't remember what but it's 6 million. And then it'll bring me back information, but it's possible that information will change tomorrow. So what I would love is a chatbot that allows me to stay on top of things and has at least a reoccurring, it doesn't have to be real time, but a 24, 48 hour reset where it goes and crawls again and make sure that it has the most up-to-date information if things have changed. The way I think that solution would work is back to Aaron's point about small business, because I think small business all the time, having run a very local, small brick and mortar CrossFit gym for many years, I've always said that, like, I just felt like the small business owner gets left out a lot of the really cool stuff because it's always too expensive, and you go, yeah, I would love to do that, but how? So one of the things I think would be really awesome for a chatbot is to build something that you could bring to, I'll just say restaurants, where they were able to quickly type in. And if it was giving them up-to-date information, you got to be careful about, like, obviously prices and competitive prices. And we know there's razor thin margins when it comes to restaurants as it is. So I don't have it fully baked out, but I do wonder if there's a solution here, kind of based on what Aaron said, where there's a chatbot that they subscribe to, that somebody, a person like us, is managing for them, or multiple restaurants that subscribe into this chatbot. So it's a subscription based type deal. And what I would be doing at a hyper local level for Florida, in the area, and in Pasco County, Florida, hyper local, I would be going in and just making sure I was manipulating and keeping that chatbot up to date for them. And anybody that subscribed would have a competitive advantage because they would be able to keep track of maybe local prices or changes and things that they need to know about in a very, very simple, user experience for them. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm sure there's holes in that, but that's kind of, I'm kind of like you guys. It's kind of where
You're
I think,
talking about
this could be really important.
Just a major news item that Robert shared with us. Robert's one of the other of our gang of 7, but he's not here today. Robert shared last night a link that is about an OpenAI announcement that they are starting to do web scraping to do continuous learning for OpenAI's chat GPTs.
Yep.
And what that means is, and you may have heard that, Chat GPT was trained on information from the web up through the end of 2021. So it doesn't know anything about the last year and a half.
Yeah.
But that's about to end. And they are going to be continuously crawling the web, just like Google and other, search engines. And Google's Bard already does this. Bing does that in concert with ChatGPT. But ChatGPT by OpenAI is going to now scan every website that isn't blocked by a paywall or is, selectively by the user or owner of that website excluded from that crawl. So that's a major change. And it's all about what you're talking about, Brian. And it is bringing the latest information, literally up to the day, into the resource that the chatbot can answer with.
Yeah.
And I've been racking my brain trying to remember the other chatbots that I do not use, but I found a post on the AI Exchange by Cesc Villanova. BotPress is what I was trying to remember. That's the one I've heard the most about. but Ultimate Raza Core AI, Kore, and Cognigy, I think.
I'll
So there are
mention,
a bunch of other
yeah,
things.
another
We're
one
just
that is
chatbot
very
folk.
proficient is
We're
called
just chat.
Dante AI.
Nice.
Dante.
Uh,
I've
And
heard
the
of
one
Dante.
that I saw demonstrated that literally was basically coming out of the closet yesterday is called Mind Studio.
Nice.
Have to check it out.
Yep.
Well, believe it or not, we're already at that time. This 30 minutes always goes fast. We always talked about that, right? Like, was 30 minutes could be enough, but I think it gives us, it's just enough to really sort of dig in and then allow our audience to go and take some of these ideas and thoughts and maybe go farther with them. So with that, I'll wrap things up. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us today and listening to us talk about chatbots. As always, we'll be here every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern on LinkedIn Live. You can find us here. So with that, I'll say goodbye unless anybody has any final thoughts here.
The Daily AI show has a LinkedIn page, and if you like it and we get to 150, we can live stream from that. So please go like.
You're the best. You're best,
Share,
Beth.
like,
Forget about that
subscribe.
every day. So I'm so glad you're on top of that.
All right.
Happy birthday
All right,
again,
guys.
Ben.
Thanks.
Happy
everybody.
birthday, Beth.
Bye.
Bye.